But then there are people that know about they acknowledge the immediate value in the moment, and they're like, I'll pay you if you show me this. And it shows that value, that transformation that says, hey, someone will pay for this type of transformation. And that's another thing too, is that especially in the day we live now with all the AI and stuff like that, it's like, well, even with the information, people want transformation.
Welcome to Success Leaves Clues, the podcast where we interview business owners on how they built their businesses and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is David Wynn, and I'm a business coach and the founder of Purple Circle, where we help business owners achieve their first 6-figure, 7-figure, and 8-figure year, all without sacrificing their quality of life. Before becoming a business coach and before founding Purple Circle, I started and scaled several 7- and 8-figure coaching businesses, and have been a consultant at several businesses doing over $100 million each, including some that are publicly listed and doing over $1 billion each. In every episode of the podcast, you're going to learn lessons that took our guests years to learn, and you'll be able to learn that in minutes. No matter if you're a new business owner or an established business owner, every episode is going to give you the clues in order to elevate your business.
Welcome to Success Leaves Clues podcast. I'm Pedro, and today I'm joined by Michael Clark, who helps pre-seed to Series A founders transform strong ideas into raise-ready pitches using disc-based personality coaching to build a story that sounds like them. Michael has positioned clients to secure anywhere from 10K to 20 million in capital investments while doubling the revenue of 4 major clients within 12 months of engagement. Michael works specifically with founders raising 250K to 5 million in tech-enabled businesses, professional services, and impact-driven startups, particularly those who have been told their deck is confusing or their pitch simply doesn't land. His approach addresses the gap between having a compelling vision and being able to communicate it with the clarity and confidence that capital actually responds to. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. Okay. And Michael, I'm somewhat of a comic book nerd myself. I love the first editions, back to the origin story. So let's rewind a bit, because every coach has that moment where they look at their life and say, yeah, I guess this is what I'm doing now, right? So when was that for you, Michael?
Yeah. Well, I will say it's one step before that. I was pitching in film and television, traveling out to LA, pitching film projects. And at the time, I will tell you, I wasn't very good at it, to say the least. And I was really nervous. I was a traditional, what they call introvert. In some ways, I think I'm an ambivert because I kind of am good with, being in front of people as well as getting that energy when I'm by myself. And at the time, I was pitching film and television, flying out to LA. And what I was finding was I was really struggling to connect, build relationship. I I often would start out a meeting and want to get right down to business, no small talk. But I realized it was because of nerves, essentially. And I would even get to the point where I was physically nauseous. Like literally, I'd be back at the hotel where everybody's on their way already. And I'm like, I just need a few more minutes. Like it literally made me physically sick. And I had to step back to say, wait a minute, if this is something I want to do, I want to pursue, then I need to really make sure that I have either some type of technique or the skills needed to pitch, connect. And what I did was I started to pull back and I started studying pitching. I read books, but it was really the mentors that I found in film, television, and venture capital that started to tell me this, said, beyond the pitch deck, this is what we're really looking for. And I was like, wait a minute, it's actually a lot simpler than I thought it was. And after kind of pulling back the covers and seeing what the studios were looking for, what investors were looking for, I started to build a methodology. And I'm like, here's a pattern here, got better. And then other producers and writers saw me pitch and they were like, hey, can you help me? And then that started to bridge over into building relationship with certain individuals in venture capital. And that's when I got into startups. And again, it was that ability to show someone the framework that I had found, which said, wait a minute, this feels really good. People that I'm working with are having success. This is repeatable. And it's not just some abstract, well, you just either have it or you don't. It's really a framework. So that's when I really locked in and said, okay, this is what I was born to do.
Hmm. Okay. I have a background in sales, high ticket closer, so I'm already excited to talk with you. And you brought some things that really hits home for me, right? I'm not sure if you agree with this, but for me, my journey was something like, to an extent, it was like I thought at any given point during pitching, for example, people will
Hmm.
realize I don't have all the answers, right? And
Hmm.
nobody does, right? And then you mention it's simpler than it looks. And
Sure.
for me, it clicked when I realized, okay, I'm not going to have all the answers, but I'll just work my way around it, right? Like, okay, got to find out the answers. I gotta do some research. I can get back to you and follow up with you. So understanding for myself that I am human in the pitching process helped me during it. Just accepting some flaws. I'm curious about your take about that. If you had, like, at least for me, I had this perspective of, oh my god, they will find out that I don't have all the answers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
Almost
to
like an
your
imposter syndrome.
yeah, and I guess I look at it this way. I love to use food analogies. And there's a thought that you have to have the perfect recipe or be prepared to cook anything no matter what they ask. But in all actuality, it's more as if you came into a restaurant and the chef said, "Well, Pedro, tell me about some of the things that you like to eat. What don't you like to eat?" "Oh, okay. This is what you're looking for? Okay, let me put that together for you." And again, to your point, can you have every single ingredient in the kitchen? No. So it would be more like, well, this is what we have. Today we have chicken and fish. And I use it as an example just to say is like we think that when you go into a diner and it seems like there's everything on the menu, and that's how people try to prepare for pitches. Like I need to be prepared for every single scenario. And it's just not the case. But if you have a stylized menu based on who you are, that's where people make the connection. And it's also the understanding too, to that point of saying I have to answer every question. It's the thought that I need to be ready for every investor. And so very much like a restaurant, there are people that like certain types of food and they're going to make certain types of connections. And so it's the same thing. Again, I always love to use the food analogy of just like, look, you cannot be prepared for every single appetite, every single taste, every single every single investor want and need. Sometimes it doesn't click because it's just not meant to be.
Now, let me ask you this. You started, noticing people were asking about advice. How can I do that? Right? And that's the early days of coaching sometimes. It's like you're giving advice, helping people, and then you realize, okay, I guess I have something real here. I'm building a real business around this. When that clicked for you, was it like the first paying customer? Was it the first invoice? When you realize, okay, this is actually something and I'm going to hit full gas on it.
Yeah, it was, I guess, a combination of when people would, to your point, because at first, when you kind of do something and you think like, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and you don't think about charging for it, and then people are like, "No, no, no, I'll pay you," and I'm like, "You'll pay me," because a lot of times if you help people on a project, they're thinking, "Oh, we'll add you as a producer, or you'll get a percentage," but then there are people that know about they acknowledge the immediate value in the moment, and they're like, I'll pay you if you show me this. And it shows that value, that transformation that says, hey, someone will pay for this type of transformation. And that's another thing too, is that especially in the day we live now with all the AI and stuff like that, it's like, well, even with the information, people want transformation. And when you can bring that, when it's more than just the words and it's being able to interpolate everything, the body language, making you more comfortable, giving you the sound bite, showing you how to face objections, and but to answer your point, yeah, it was when people started to literally say, "Hey, I'll pay for this," and then as I started to move through the process and say, "Well, what are other people charging?" and then realizing like this is a very valuable asset to have.
Mm. I love how you have like some sort of validation through the process. It's
Hmm.
just not like something, hey, I'm gonna come up with this. It's not like, hey, people want to pay you for it. So you're
Yeah,
like immediately, okay, I got something, right? Now
exactly.
I'm curious about one thing, right? Because in the early days, and you kind of brought it up, the film industry and the television industry, you were pitching there, and that was your space. And in the early days for coaching, we were trying to help everyone sometimes,
Hmm.
like just trying to make it happen. But eventually we hit a point that we attract a certain type of people, or we would like to work with certain type of people, right? Niching down or not even, but, and we kind of brought it up in the intro, but I would love to understand from you, who are the people that kept showing up, you know, the evolution through it, that you went through it, like at the start you were dealing with X, Y, and Z, and the ones you
Sure,
realized, okay, this is my tribe. You know what I
sure.
mean?
Yeah, well, it comes in a couple of different flavors. One, and I use this to this day, is that people come to me when they know something is broken. There's that self-awareness of, wait a minute, something's not hitting, something's not clicking. The type of people that come to me aren't like, hey, I'm pitching, I'm closing, everything is going great. I just want to get better. Right. And I will tell you, I'm even adverse to working with people like that because I'm like, oh, okay, you're at a 9.5. Let's get you a half point up. That's not it. People come to me when they're either one, they're very new to it and they're like, hey, guide me, educate me. I want to know how this thing works. Or they've had several meetings and things have fallen flat. They're not getting the yeses, they're getting ghosted. And another pocket of individuals, and I always say God has like blessed me to be able to work with this group, is I work with a lot of women. A lot of women have come to me or seen the advertising, and I will tell you, especially in startups, it's very male dominated space, and work with several women that have just been like, oh my gosh, the way you showed me, the compassion you've showed, the clarity, it's just been a really good fit. So like I said, those three groups: one where they just have not really, they're new to pitching. And that's another thing too I want to make a point of, is that there's those that you attract and those that you repel. And on the repel side, I would say people will just say, well, I already know how to pitch. I could get a pitch from AI, or, hey, if I just speak from my gut, that's enough. If I tell the story, if they see it, it's enough. So those people aren't a good fit. When they know there's layers to it and there's a process, again, that's where we educate through our webinars and advertising. But again, a lot of people come to me too, and they just are like, hey, I need some help here. Things aren't working out.
Interesting. Some people, like, they didn't even start the process and they're already in denial. So there's that.
Oh,
No.
please. That's very true, right? Haven't
Right.
had one pitch meeting and they're like, "No, I'm good." I'm like, "Okay. Good luck."
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm not gonna, I need to exercise more, in case you haven't realized, Michael, by looking at the camera, right?
I agree.
But it's like, oh no, actually, I don't have the right shoes. I don't have the right
Mhm.
shorts. It's just like, this is not really gonna work out. When I should just barefoot walk outside,
Exactly.
if that's what it takes. You
That's
know.
right.
Okay. Now I want to pretend I'm your ideal client profile, and I'd love to pretend on this exercise, because I'm very curious about the women that you work with. So
Mhm.
let's pretend I have a long distance cousin. She's called Pedra. Okay.
Mhm.
And she's your avatar. First of all, how would she able to find you, right? Marketing wise.
Yeah, well, probably through Facebook ads. I definitely run ads on Facebook. I have a couple of video sales letters out there and advertisements. Also Instagram. I have quite a few people that reached out to me and have watched. I put out these little segments and nuggets of tips on pitching. And again, it's not, hey, this is how you win over a person. It's just a lot of it's mindset. I do a lot of mindset videos with regards to pitching. The thought that they have to have the answer to every question, answer to every objection, and people really resonate that with that because they're like, "Wow, I thought that too. I thought I needed to be able to answer everything," or, "Hey, I'm a first time startup in my family, it's like, do I have to come from a pedigree? So again, it's usually one of those two places, the Facebook
Mm,
or on Instagram.
okay. Now, Pedra was browsing through Facebook or even Instagram, right? She saw what you got out there. She was like, hey, I kind of need this. Michael seems like a cool guy. She went through the sales process, right? Which is kind of meta, to be honest, right? They're like
Hmm.
going through it, and and I bet they're judging at the same time and think, hey, this looks good, this doesn't look good, that type of mentality. Um, and let's speed up a little bit. If you want, we can talk a little bit about the sales process, your own sales process. But I would love to understand and have a peek behind the curtain for Pedra. How does it look like to work with you? Potential outcomes she can expect out of it.
Sure, sure. Well, I pride myself that in a very short amount of time, Pedro will be able to see some instant results of clarity in terms of the true problem her product or service solves. I really cut to the chase on that. Um, Whether they're men or women, usually these are individuals that are geniuses at what they do, geniuses in their space, but often they're too close to their product or service to see that real value the big problem that they're solving. And so that would be one of the immediate wins that happen, that like, oh my goodness, I'd never looked at it that way. That's what I always hear. I never looked at it that way. And I'm looking at it from that perspective of their potential. I'm looking at it from a couple of different lenses: as a potential investor, as a potential partner, and as a potential customer of that product. And then through that process, being also able to craft their own story, their unique story of who they are, what they do, and the transformation that this product will bring. That emphasis on the why and the why now, that's what investors care about. So really being able to formulate that in a very short amount of time. I always make a point that whether I'm working with someone for 14 days or 90 days, I don't throttle the greatness. I really want people to be able to leave me and pitch with more confidence, have a clear narrative and story in a short amount of time.
Hmm. Okay. So I'm curious about Pedro, specifically women, right?
Sure.
You mentioned you do attract some.
Yep.
And sometimes I understand people are unique, right?
Hmm.
Not every woman's going to be the same. I get that 100%. But do you feel like there is any reason for you to attract more women?
Yeah.
That's one. And second, do you navigate them a little bit different? Because I've seen them thriving, like kicking ass in the sales process, and and also seen sometimes they're struggling, especially
Hmm.
with rejection. Feeling
Yeah.
like a little bit personal, like when rejection, it's just about the offer, not about them. But I'm curious about your take on that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I'm glad you brought it up in that way. In that, remember, we talked about that perfect avatar of individuals that kind of, there's those that say, "Oh, I'm good," and then those that know that there's an issue. The women that I work with are often dealing with a little bit either of imposter syndrome, or they're in spaces and places where they almost feel like a not a why me, but not really fully understanding that they're there because they're geniuses at what they do. They have a great product, and really understanding that their seat at a table with an investor is deserved, right? Even before they open their mouth. Not that they have to prove something, or that, and I've also had to deal with people that just felt like, well, as a woman, and I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. That's not how this works here. We have to look at this as you are a founder, executive, CEO with an amazing product or service, with a great team, with great financials. And let's not lead with because I'm a woman. And I will tell you, I deal with that the same thing with race. I have people say, "Well, as a black, wait, 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 wait. Like, are you great at what you do? Do you have a great product or service? Is it valuable? Let's lead with that. Let's not go in there with the think that we're already two strikes down when we get up to the plate." And I know that can be a touchy subject for some because people say, well, there's sexism and there's racism, and I'm not saying that that doesn't exist, but you do have to really ask that to wait out in the lobby to be your best in a pitch, because if you're in that room and you're already thinking I'm less than or I've got this against me, it shows up in the pitch, and it shows up in with this like lack of confidence. And
Mm,
investors especially can feel it because they say to themselves, am I looking at another executive CEO leader, or
mm,
am I looking at someone with just a good idea? And that's one of the things from a standpoint of mindset I deal with right away. Like all of the negative stuff, all the past. Now, the great thing about it is I do use your past to build an amazing narrative about what has brought you here, but we have to be very forward looking. And that's one of the things about being a coach. I'm not a therapist or a counselor. I'm not dealing with what happened when you were 9 or dealing with some deep emotional pain, but I do deal with mindset from a standpoint of really repositioning them, changing their thinking, changing their view to say, look, when you take that stage, whether it be a physical stage or a Zoom window, you are there. Be your best. You deserve to be there. And that's something with Pedra, the Pedras of the world that I really push meeting one.
mm.
I know I
Okay.
said a lot in there, but
Yeah, I love it, man. I really like it. And I'm curious about another topic to ask you, which is, social media. We have a lot of influencers out there, especially in sales, right? And I see those shorts, those videos, those clips, and I want your opinion. Like I see a lot of people like getting this back and forth about objections, right? And I say this, and then I'm gonna say this, and then I counter the objection, and then I close them, and it sounds so tactical. It's almost like in a magical sense of things, right? They are like, I was not going to have the sale. I said those three magic words and something clicked, and then I closed it. What's your take on it? Because I do have my opinion, but I'm going to save it for yours first. I would love to hear your ideas and how does that look like for you?
well, as we know, objections come in different flavors, right? The financial, emotional. I'm a big proponent of preparing, and I have all my clients prepare anywhere from 30 to 50 objections and the answers beforehand. So they come across natural, they're embedded in their presentation of who they are, what they do, and it almost sounds like a soundbite. I always use the example of when a star goes on a press tour for a particular movie, they say the same thing every single time. And so, in the same way, I think it's important with objections that you have a very clear, confident approach and answer beforehand. Now, there are always going to be those objections that you just didn't plan for. And for those, I make a big point, especially in the startup space, is one, don't lie. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because that whole fake it till you make it does not work in startups, film, anything. And then two, sometimes using the objections almost to your advantage. Meaning, Pedro, if you say something and I'm just floored, I have no answer for it whatsoever. My ability to then go back, prepare, get the answer for you could sometimes prove better in your eyes than if I had some magical answer.
Mm-hmm.
But getting back to the original question, I think there are some times where there is that magic that happens, but it's out of preparation. It's really out of preparation of anticipating the potential objections, but the gap between, and but this is where I want to be very careful, and for anyone listening and even with my clients, is that you're not going to be able to be prepared for every objection, right? But how you respond, even the fact of saying, well, Pedro, in all of my meetings with investors, you are the first person to ask that question. We don't have the data, but I can definitely get it to you by Friday. Like being able to just come back. Or if someone, and this is the other thing too, some objections are truly a sign that it's not a good fit too. Because the other, and I think this is where sales and pitching kind of divide a little bit. Like sometimes, depending on the sale, we're driving towards like, hey, have to score this touchdown, right? You
Hmm.
have to. And with pitching, if at some point I get to, we may hit a wall that says, wait a minute, Pedro, you're not the right investor for this. And then you also have to be okay with that. So I hope, hopefully that answered the question. But in
You
terms
did.
of, like I said, the magic, like you can say something magical to close it. I think in sales, if we've already checked all of the boxes, right? The 9 boxes, right product, right timing, everything. And then there's this objection that's tied to some emotion, fear, or value. And you say it to turn the corner, good. But what happens, I find more so in pitching, is there's only maybe 6 boxes checked and we're beating ourselves up about the other objections. Is if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. I even have my clients create this investor avatar that says, who are we looking for? If we're doing med tech, we're looking for an angel investor that has at least several exits to med tech, that has connections, that's in the Northeast. Like, we're going down this list. And so when we do meet with someone, it's not a fishing expedition. It is simply, let's qualify what we already know to see if this is a good fit today.
Okay. Interesting take. Now, I'm curious about another thing with AI, and you kind of mentioned it already
Yeah.
about the topic, right? So, what are your thoughts and opinions about AI reviewing sales calls? That's a thing right now.
Hmm.
I know it doesn't usually pick up on soft skills, facial expressions and all that. But I'd love to hear your opinion on it.
Absolutely love it. I think it's as a barometer to kind of check where, because different tools, as we know, do different things. Fathom, Otter, and getting that sentiment, that where we could have maybe faced an objection a little bit better. I think the analysis of it is great. you know and shameless plug, it's also good to review that with someone to say, okay, here's what AI is recommending, how do we really implement that? Or sometimes I find sometimes there's this gap between what AI is recommending and how it kind of plays out in the real world and what the possibilities are. Because again, the analysis, I think, and I'm a big proponent. Really quick though, I'm a big proponent of recording every single sales call or pitch. Record it, the analysis, the information, and also too, I've been around long enough to see times where there's meetings and it's like, hey, you said no, you didn't, I didn't promise that. So there's nothing like
Woo!
having the recording too. So
Right. Okay. Now let's shift gears for a second, Michael, really quick. I want to understand what future looks like for personality pitching, right? So, where are you taking all this, man? Looking ahead, where do you see the business going? Are you thinking about hiring, scaling, or is there a next step you're excited about?
yeah. Well, a couple of things. I also, over the last, I want to say 2 years, have been working with nonprofits also, executive directors and nonprofits in pitching donors. And there is such a similarity in the two spaces. So the growth in that part of my business has been absolutely amazing. Um, because essentially, and I bring the startup mindset over to nonprofits, because nonprofits kind of run like, hey, we're operating on love today, and I'm like, no, you need funding today. And so in the same way, startups come to me and they're like, hey, we need some help. Nonprofits come to me in the same way, and I work with them on their mission, vision, narrative, identifying donors, how to pitch them, pitch decks. So there's a lot of similar elements. And so with that, I'll definitely be adding at least 2 more coaches between now and next spring. Definitely been fortifying my marketing infrastructure and bumping that up. But yeah, there's definitely the growth there. Even within
Mm,
the last month, like 4 or 5 new clients coming on, and I'm like, wow, sooner than later, I need to get some help, and it's great. It's great. And again, the essence of what I do is I help shy, introverted individuals that are experts at what they do communicate and connect at a higher level. And when they can kind of come out of that shell and articulate that message, when you see that light bulb
mm,
go off, it's just amazing, and I get a really good feeling from it.
okay. Now, whenever we're aiming towards the next step, the next thing, there's always something we're improving, right? So, what are you actually trying to, refine in the business right now?
Yeah, I would say systems and internal delegation. Just that ability to go from, spinning all the plates and handling it myself to where I'll simply say, and it's great because I have a VA who specializes in like goal setting also. So not only will she take a task, but she also holds me accountable, which is amazing. And then she also body doubles with me a little bit. And I didn't even know what body doubling was. I was like, this is so cool. I was like, wait, you're gonna stay on the line with me? And so that's helpful because like you can get distracted when you're not in an office with offices and meeting rooms and you're running your own organization. Sometimes that accountability helps. But yeah, so those are the things I'm working on. It's just
Mm.
that infrastructure and systems and really delegating.
Classic in the coaching space,
Yep.
right? Now, I want to step into a little bit of a sci-fi moment here. Okay, let's pretend we do have a time machine in front of us, right? And you can go back in time. I mean, you've been what 10 years in the game.
Yep.
We were talking about pre-podcast and all that, and you do have the opportunity to go back in time and give Michael, past Michael, when he started the coaching business, one piece of business advice that you wish you knew back then. What would that look like?
Well, immediately I thought of two. Um, charge more earlier, right? And then two, stop doing everything yourself. The earlier you delegate, the better. So it doesn't have to become a thing. I think that had I gotten, more help earlier on, especially during the pandemic, because things really just exploded during the pandemic. And I have heard of people running like $1 million, $2 million, $3 million business solo. And I'm like, whoa. But I said to myself, I would delegate more and a lot earlier. So, yep.
Okay. Now, same time machine.
Yep.
Okay. And you can go back to one point in time that you feel like it was the most happy or most fulfilled moment you had during the entire journey. Okay. What would that be?
I have to think back to a time where I had a startup client that was 0 and 11 in pitch meetings. She was 0 for 11. And she said that when I pitch investors, it feels like an interrogation. And she actually came from a webinar where I only had two people show up on it. And the other person dropped off and she stayed during the whole time. And afterwards, we started talking. And she ended up becoming a client. And within 2 weeks, she raised $250,000. And I think that was just such, and she ended up raising much more. But that point, that click, that turning point was just such a good feeling because she had been in tears
Mm.
14 days earlier, on a webinar. And so knowing that I could bring that type of transformation in such a short amount of time, just really good feeling.
Mm. I love that. Okay. Now, if someone listening wants to connect with you or follow your work, Michael, and we're going to have all the links in the description,
Sure.
right? But where can people find you best and connect with you?
Sure, sure. A lot of people, Instagram is a great place, just at personality pitching. And I love connecting there because one, you can book a discovery call as well as see like kind of what it like kind of get into the mind. I think it's really important to watch videos on a coach too before you meet. So you can just kind of hear some of, the coaching and consulting that I give. Of course, you can go to personalitypitching.com and also book a discovery call. And again, even listening to this today, the person that should click is that you say, wait a minute, I'm either just getting into this or I'm in it and not seeing a level of success. I spot the gaps. We work together to fill those gaps. Um, if you, and I will tell you, don't, if you're just thinking and just have an idea, I am not the person for you. Like,
Mm.
really flesh out the idea. I don't do the brainstorming. Hey, I have 3 ideas for a startup. Which one do you think will pop? That's not what I'm in the business of. But I do recommend is that if you are at that point, I want you to test. I want you to talk to people, maybe even do like a little focus group, and get to a point where you feel like there's an appetite for that thing. Just don't go to AI because AI can sometimes stroke your ego. Yeah, it's a good idea, Pedro. Go for it. Yeah, so that's how you find me.
Okay. Allow me to highlight a few moments from this chat today. Okay. Let's start with the origin story. When you told me you were not doing any small talk, it was you were literally getting physically ill, physically sick, just by pitching, nerve wracking situation, right? And then we move forward a little bit, and it looks like to me so clear in a way that you're serving past Michael, right? That you've been there, you've done that, and now you help people to avoid those pitfalls because you created a framework so people can overcome what you've been through a lot, right? So skin in the game, Michael, skin in the
That's right.
game.
That's
There's
right.
that. I love the analogy that you cannot be prepared for every meal, right? In a restaurant doesn't mean it's not a 3-star Michelin restaurant or whatever. It's just that it's not human to be always 100% prepared to every answer, but it's the ability to navigate those with confidence, with owning your spot, saying, hey, maybe I don't have that right now, top of my head, but give me a few days, we can work something out. And actually, a great reminder of like that is not just about the pitching itself and overcoming the objections, but they are also in the spot, the people you're pitching to. So if they give you an objection, like an absurd objection, like, hey, can you guarantee my ROI in 1 week? Those type of mentalities to put you in a spot and zero risk, that person is not the ideal candidate to be, investing in your own business, because at the end of the day, it is a partnership too. So there's that. Very interesting. Last but not least, I would say is when we're talking about women, right? And not just about women, you brought up race. And
Yeah.
I love the fact that you're not allowing people to label themselves. It's not
Yes.
about them. It's about the pitch. It's about the offer. And if you take that out of their own way, they will be able to be more confident. They will be able to understand it's not about them, and they can laser focus on what exactly they have to do and overcome. Now, this is just my long-winded way of saying that I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly
Awesome.
today, Michael. Great having you on.
Yes, thank you so much. I love what you do in the space. And if you're listening, make sure you subscribe to Pedro, and just appreciate what you do.
Appreciate you, man.
That's it for this episode. This episode, as well as this podcast, was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help business owners elevate their business to 6, 7, and 8-figure years, all without burning out. If you're looking to grow your business, as well as get the time freedom that you are looking for, visit us at joinpurplecircle.com and see what we can do to help you and your business.